Hello everyone, it is Jonathan, and today I'm ranking all 16 movies that have been released in the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far from worst to best. To clarify, this list does include Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 and Spider-Man Homecoming that have released this year, so there will be spoilers from those movies. Give me your own ranking in the comments down below, and let's get started. At the bottom is The Incredible Hulk. This movie isn't bad, it was just okay to me. I didn't have any particular issues with the film itself, but I wasn't excited at any point during the story, even when the Hulk fought the Abomination in Harlem. Honestly, this film wasn't my cup of tea. At number 15 is Iron Man 2. Coming off the success of Iron Man, I was expecting this movie to be better, but it fell flat in some areas. The revenge storyline that was portrayed with the villain Ivan Vanko could have had more emotion behind it, and I wasn't buying Justin Hammer being a real competitor of Tony Stark. Still, this movie continued to build the Marvel Cinematic Universe, including the introduction of Black Widow. At number 14 is Iron Man 3. This was the first Marvel movie I saw in a theater, and it was an enjoyable experience. Particularly, I like the part of the movie where Tony teams up with the 10-year-old to find out more information about the Mandarin. However, what puts this film so low in the rankings is the fake Mandarin. I know that it was a comedic twist, but it was a slap in the face for comic book fans. Just like Iron Man 2's villain, the real Mandarin's quest for revenge wasn't touching at all. At number 13 is Thor: The Dark World. Although this movie isn't loved by Marvel fans, I actually enjoyed it. The culture of Asgard is explored more in depth, and the relationships Thor has with others evolves. Also, Tom Hiddleston once again amazed me with his performance as Loki. Although the main antagonist Malekith was a standard MCU villain, I appreciated that the Ether turned out to be an Infinity Stone. Since it's been almost 4 years since we've had a Thor movie, I can't wait until Ragnarok comes out this November. At number 12 is Thor. I didn't know what to expect from this movie because I had no knowledge of who Thor was, but this movie turned me into a fan of his character, and he is actually my favorite Avenger now. I have to commend Marvel for keeping the story simple, which helped make the movie presentable since Thor isn't an Earth-based character. What stood out to me above everything else in this movie was the dynamic between Loki and Thor, and how they both have their own separate ways of trying to please Odin. And until the Avengers happened, I had some sympathy for Loki after he separated from his family at the movie's end. At number 11 is Captain America: The First Avenger. Although I didn't think much of this movie after watching it for the first time, I have a greater appreciation for it because of the Winter Soldier in Civil War. We were introduced to the Cap and Bucky relationship, and Red Skull was a compelling villain. Peggy Carter was also an interesting character, and I like that Howard Stark was included in the story as well. Even though this film doesn't have the spectacle that usually comes with a Marvel movie, it was still a satisfying experience that introduced us to one of the MCU's best characters in Captain America, while also being the movie that directly leads into the Avengers. At number 10 is Guardians of the Galaxy. Although Thor introduced us to places outside of Earth, Guardians of the Galaxy fully brought us to the cosmic side of the MCU. All of the Guardians were intriguing, and I love the comedy that was present throughout the film. This ended up making it one of the more entertaining movies in the MCU, and the way that Ronan was defeated by Peter distracting him by dancing was a perfect representation of the tone of the movie. At number 9 is Ant-Man. Just like I mentioned in my discussion of Thor that I didn't know who he was, I was in the same scenario with Ant-Man. I was concerned that this movie wasn't going to be commercially successful because he isn't a well-known character, but I'm glad I was proven wrong. Although I thought Darren Cross was a lackluster Yellow Jacket, I was able to overlook it because of the comedy, especially with Michael Pena's character. Because the story focuses on Scott Lang trying to find a way to support his daughter, Ant-Man ends up being one of the most relatable people in the MCU because he's just a regular guy. And after watching that mid-credit scene with the Wasp, I'm curious to see how the sequel will play out. At number 8 is Iron Man. You may be wondering why I'm putting this movie so low on the list considering that I've launched the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm not diminishing its impact, but as I stated in my last ranking video, this all comes down to personal preference. Other than the fact that this movie is slow paced at some points, I don't have any other complaints due to finally be able to see Iron Man fight on screen. Robert Downey Jr. was a wise choice to play Iron Man, and the supporting cast behind him complemented his acting abilities. I like Ironmonger as a villain because his motivation was kept simple, and I have to commend Marvel for starting the trend of post-credit scenes for its movies. At number 7 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Volume 2 took everything that the first film did right and expanded upon it. Every Guardian had their moment to shine, and we see growth in each of them. I enjoyed the father-son relationship between Ego and Star-Lord, and the reveal that Ego killed Star-Lord's mother brought seriousness in a movie that was mainly comedic. And speaking of the humor, I was satisfied with the Taserface jokes and the banter between Mantis and Drax. One person who gained my respect in Volume 2 is Yondu because of the sacrifice he made at the end of the movie, and I am thankful that this series teased Adam Warlock. At number 6 is Doctor Strange. Just like Guardians fully introduced us to the cosmic side of the MCU, Doctor Strange immersed us into the world of magic. The acting more than anything else stood out to me. Strange's growth as a character was believable because of Cumberbatch, along with the actors that played Mordo and Wong. The visual effects and cinematography in this movie were incredible, and the action wasn't disappointing. I wasn't a fan of Kaecilius as an antagonist, but Mads Mikkelsen did a serviceable job. Hopefully we'll see Dormammu again so the full extent of his power is displayed on screen, and I wonder how Mordo will be as a villain in the sequel. At number 5 is Spider-Man Homecoming. Out of all of the Spider-Man movies, this is the most faithful adaptation to how he's presented in the comics because Tom Holland looks like a teenager and he's a funny Spider-Man. I'm glad Iron Man didn't overshadow Spider-Man and we see him as a mentor figure opposed to the other roles he's played in the MCU. Aside from the team-up movies, the action scenes have the most validity. The Vulture is one of the best villains in the MCU because his motives were sympathetic, he actually had a code of honor, and I could take him seriously. I wasn't expecting the plot twist that revealed the Vulture to be the dad of the girl Peter likes, and you can feel how tense it was in that car ride scene on the way to the homecoming dance. Although the final battle between Spider-Man and Vulture wasn't grand, I still enjoyed it for what it was. But the post-credit scenes with Captain America teaching us patience stands out above everything else. At number 4 is The Avengers. For us fans of superheroes, a movie like this is something we've highly anticipated. I overlooked the slow pacing during the first 2 acts of the movie because the third act was awesome. You can't deny how epic this scene was. Loki was a mastermind in this, and he had one of the more elaborate plans I've seen of any MCU antagonist, although he does lose some credibility after the Hulk smashes him around, but the highlight of this movie is the reveal of Thanos and setting up the quest for the Infinity Stones. At number 3 is Avengers Age of Ultron. From beginning to end, this movie was entertaining because it stayed focused on the main storyline. Thematically, Ultron was a perfect fit for this movie because the Avengers began to fracture in this movie over him. The introduction of Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and Vision added diversity to Age of Ultron, but Hawkeye's character arc made me respect him more. Honestly, I thought he was going to die in this movie, and the action scenes in this film were far superior to the ones in the Avengers. At last, Marvel showed us that the stakes were high with the death of Quicksilver, and they should continue to do so in Infinity War. At number 2 is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. This didn't feel like a superhero movie to me, but more like a political thriller. As a result, this is the most suspenseful MCU film, and it stands out amongst the others on this list. The action was nothing less than extraordinary, specifically the first fight on the road between Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Also, we see the maturation of the relationship Cap has between Black Widow, Nick Fury, and Sam Wilson. Because this film dealt with more mature subject matter such as political espionage compared to the other movies while still being entertaining, it stands above all but one. At number 1 is Captain America: Civil War. Although this movie had the task of continuing the storyline of the Winter Soldier and dealing with the aftermath of Age of Ultron, it excelled in doing this by keeping the plot simple. Seeing the ideological clash between Iron Man and Captain America added emotional depth to this film, as well as witnessing how far Cap is willing to go for his friend. When you look at this movie in the grand scheme of the MCU, Tony Stark and Steve Rogers' character arcs inform the choices they make in Civil War. The introduction of Black Panther and Spider-Man complemented this movie, but its villain was something special. Zemo was a cold and calculating individual, and I actually felt some sympathy for him because his family died as a consequence of the Avengers' recklessness in Age of Ultron. Also, his plan actually worked. Due to this, Zemo's easily the best villain in the MCU so far, along with making Civil War the franchise's best movie yet. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like it, subscribe to the channel for more content, and share this video. For my next video, I will be ranking all 5 seasons of Arrow, so look out for that. Have a great day, and I will see you all soon.